Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life. And Professor Sunrise Productions! Hello class, Professor Sunrise here. In today's class, we're taking a look at Dragon Link and Dragon combo decks in general post Cyberstorm Access. I have tested quite a bit in the last week and a half, I think, and I'm very happy with the results of the testing. So in today's video, we will be taking a look at Bystial Control with or without Quem, taking a look at Apple Dragon Brave combo piles, or maybe even Apple Dragon in Dragon Link itself, and then we will be taking a look at just plain old Dragon Link. I will give you pros and cons of all of the lists which I've been testing with and my overall view about them, and then finally I'm gonna tell you what my go-to variant will be for now. Of course, like always, there can always be some hidden spies running around. I saw like an Apple Dragon list at DB Grinders channel with like Cybers gadgets, so maybe there's some nice cute starters you can have there. But overall, I think my results are like pretty much the consensus of a lot of people. If you take a look at what people are saying in the comment section down below in a lot of videos, these will be the stuff which I also found out. So without further ado, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave some feedback down in the comment section below, and let's get right into the video. So let's firstly take a look at like standard Bystial Control. I haven't honestly tested with it in a while, like on a ladder basis. This hasn't been my go-to pick, but honestly, Bystial Control is still fine. It's still performing decently well at a regional level. But without a YCS really happening, there's nothing really major to top with the deck, but it's super standard. It's super control heavy. It does have a lot of non-engine spaces, so that's always really good for a deck. It can adapt probably the best out of all of the Dragon variants. The only problem I have is that it cannot really make use of Dogmatika all too well. While it's not really a solid tool for going first, it does come up plenty of times, like in a grind game in turn 3, or if you get hand trapped and then you can fall back on it, though you do have the access into Chaos Angel quite effectively with the Safer being at 40 and having Chaos Space. So it's definitely a very solid pick, but it's nothing crazy. But if you don't know what to expect a lot of times, and you just want to have a safe pick and you want to feel confident with the deck, definitely standard Bystial Control is the way to go, probably, or at least it's not a bad way to go, let's say it like that. Then we have the Quem variant of Bystial Control, and honestly, what I really like Quem in general, or like for going first, it can be like a very solid tool for that. It feels like kind of lackluster in a sense, where of course you do get access into the Dogmatika lines, but that's also like quite a big amount of investment for the extra deck, like the 1-2 slots you want to play for that, while only having 3 cards in the main deck for it, and like the big package with the Branded and High Spirits, and all of the other stuff like Cartesia, a lot of Albions, doesn't seem like a great fit. Branded and High Spirit just seems like a very bad card for the archetype. You don't really have a lot of discard synergy. More than one Albion seems risky, with Droll being even more prevalent than it is right now, and Cartesia is a little bricky because it's only really good if you have like everything set up. Add to that, if you do that big amount, you can't really play 40. You have less access into your dragon cards, which you really want to have. You have less access into Safer, and overall you have less dragon toolboxy cards. You don't have access to Leviania. So while this is a good variant, and it might be on par with Bystial Control depending on the meta, I'm just not a huge fan of it. Just because Guiding Quem going second is a little bit of a nuisance, because it doesn't really enable a lot of plays. If it gets hand trapped, you don't really have a dragon on board, so you only really are able to go into like Saranias, like with Saranias or like Magnums or any other Bystials into Synchro 10s. And these can be stopped quite effectively, so I'd much rather have plays which are still a dragon with itself, because in a pinch we can always just fall back onto Seal Pass, which is a very solid tool. But of course you could play the Fallen of Albast, so the Seal Pass is definitely way stronger in this variant. Then let's take a look at Bystial Synchro. This is probably like the go-to deck for a lot of people right now, at least the go-to testing tool. And I'm not a huge fan of Bystial Synchro. I've done a lot of testing with it on stream and off stream, and it just seems like a very weird deck. You have a small Bystial package, which I've been kind of disliking. I really like Serenator 3, and I've been trying to include it in a lot of my deck lists, which I really liked in the Quem variant, because Serenia is like the second best Bystial in there, especially if you fall back to just wanting to have Safered, and like Quem, Serenia is just insane with both of them, so that feels very solid. Branded Etude is a card which I'm not a fan of. I don't think it's gonna be particularly well into the meta. Because like the macrocosmos, like the soft macrocosmos effect is just nothing the meta really is scared of, because the meta is trying to beat a Rise Hard anyways. So what is that one weird macrocosmos which is like very conditional? It's not like even a blanket macrocosmos gonna do to most of the decks. Not a lot. It's additional break. And getting it off is like kind of hard. You can definitely do it, but it's like nothing major. Honestly, I'd much rather just set up a branded beast. It's way less low investment. It's way more flexible at what it can do. Of course, like making a quick synchro like into a Savage or into a Barone can be very cool, but it just takes way too much setup for being an additional break, and I just don't really like it. Then you don't really have access into the safe route because you're playing the Brave package, which is not even that big of a deal, but you can get by it, but it's just a bad card you're missing. But as you can see, the more important stuff, and which the safe route is like kind of like part of the problem as well, is that you're lacking dragon options. For my opinion, the strongest tool for Bystial control, of course, has always been making Seal and then using Seal to summon Magnamut, and then Magnamut being able to search anything you want for follow-up. Be it a Chaos Emperor Dragon, be it a Chaos Dragon Leviathan, be it a Lubellion because you got like hand tripped or something, be it a Safed because you haven't went through that, be it a Black Metal because you haven't gone through that. Like opening this whole Dragon toolbox, which is by far, in my opinion, the greatest tool the Dragons has to offer, with cards like Ravine, with cards like Seal. It is just not there in this variant because you cannot really fit in any of the other dragons. That this is, in my opinion, the biggest problem. This is not a dragon, this is just like a base type pile, and just uses Bystials as a very weird engine to get some for a follow-up in there. But because it's super hard to end on Seal with this list while also going into other synchros, this just seems like a deck which tries too much, in my opinion. It does have the ability to play a decent amount of non-engine, but if it does, it lacks the ability to go into a good amount of access into your Apple Dragon, which is probably the biggest problem the deck has. That is just the consistency problem, because you only really have 3 Apple Dragon, right? You can play 3 Small Worlds, but this is also just inherently a -1, of course, which can be fine, but it just seems a little weird, because you need to see the Ringo Worm to be able to play at all into these combos. And it just seems weird to have like all of these crazy 2-card combos, which are quite susceptible to hand traps. To be fair, to just be reliable on seeing like a 3 off, at maximum like a 6 off, maybe like a 9 off if you play like the Necro Shade, whatever it's called, the Necro Shinobi Necro. You can also play this, but these opens up other combos, and that just seems super weird, especially if you have to go second. These combos become even worse, in my opinion. So lack of access into tuners, lack of access into Dragon Toolbox are definitely some problems which I have with the deck. Then if you take a look at the Brave engine, it's while it's a very solid engine, of course, it got a little bit power crept, and it's also not a really good tool in the meta right now because there's a lot of spot removal. It just seems very weird to play a Brave combo pile and not even have the protection of the Brave cards into your combo, because if you use the Brave engine, you will go for like Enchantress, get Ride, Fateful Adventure, search Enchantress, and then summon it to get into the Artemis line with the Muddy Mud Dragon, wherever it might be. Here it is. So you don't even have the Omni Negate for most of the combo. You cannot really use the combo off with the Griffin Rider unless you go for like standard Dragonlink stuff, if you have like a Brave engine plus like Chaos Base plus a pitch. But then you can also just play Brave engine and Dragonlink, right? And you have like a way better deck which is more streamlined and doesn't try to do anything too fancy. So the Brave engine is, while it is of course a very strong package, you don't really use it to its full advantage, but you still have all of the brickiness it has. Like seeing a Draco bag, you cannot, I hate it, I fucking hate it in testing, it is annoying. And then you can play the Chaos-based package, but it seemed a little weird in my opinion because it didn't really do enough. So there are a lot of people which are, in my opinion, heavily coping on this variant of like Bystials, maybe you could call it, but it's, in my opinion, just a whole different deck. It's just a base combo type deck which has not even close of an auto-win combo. The combo is more resemblance that of like a Dragonlink board. You like end on Barone, Disparta, maybe a Seal if you have it, and then like some form of the branded cards, but the combo is susceptible as fuck. You play way less non-engine than like stuff like Bystial Control, and sometimes even stuff like Dragonlink, depending on the build and depending on how the meta shapes up. And it just seems super weird because if you get stopped by like an Nibiru or by like a hand trap, you just crumble and you don't really have any follow-up. Speaking of Nibiru, you heavily play into that. It is unreal how hard this deck loses to Nibiru, or like this Pata combos in general lose to Nibiru. So overall, it doesn't seem like something which I'd like to play in my opinion. But of course, maybe there will be some things which can happen with the deck. Like I said, this Cyber Sketch, like it's a normal summon. Maybe there's like a band-aid fix for all of that. But honestly, the most crucial part it's not even where you lack the Dragon Toolbox, because you can play around it, of course, if you're like a very consistent, strong Synchro tool lineup with a lot of non-engine. You cannot work around that. You don't need the Dragon Toolbox. The main problem is lack of access into your tuners. It just doesn't really feel natural to play a deck like this, because you are just you don't see enough tuners, honestly. Even if you max out all of them, if you play like 3 Shinobi Necro, 3 Ringo Room, you could even play 3 Plague Spreader, then you have like 9, which is like barely enough to see it consistently enough. But that's like just like Mathmech, right, where you have like 9 circulars, and if you don't see it, the deck just crumbles. While Mathmech has way more options, this deck will just completely crumble if it doesn't see its tuners, and they don't even work in tandem at all. So this doesn't seem like a fit for me. But if any of you guys have like a very spicy list, definitely let me know, because I would like to play with Brave again until I draw all of my Draco bags. Quick honorable mention for Dragon's Dogmatika. While I'm a huge fan of it, I don't see it being all too crazy right now. With Quem being a Dogmatic as well, you could maybe get into some nice lines into your opponent's turn with branded Etude. Maybe you have some options there to be able to send that, like send an Albion, do stuff like that. But it seems a little weird, and I don't think it's time for it yet. Maybe in another format when Maximus is insane, you could do that. But if you want to play Bystial Control, definitely test a little bit with Nadir Sermon. It is a very strong card. Just by itself, you can put up a lot of pluses in your turn. But honestly, I don't think it is the time for Dragon's Dogma or Bystial Control in general right now. My go-to list has been basically exactly this, and we'll just go over it. So of course we have the standard Bystial list, like standard Bystial setup, apart from the 30 Sarania. But I really noticed that in playing the 60 card Dragon Link, we will get to that later, that 3 Saranias is like really solid, because this plus basically any normal summon of a dragon goes into Seal plus Magnamut and Face Add and like a Branded Beast setup, because you just go into your Romulus, and then Saranias sends Lobelian, and then Ravine can send the Seyfert, so that you can use Seyfert effect to add back the Lobelian. So this card has been overperforming crazily well, and it just goes in tandem with going down from the 40 card, from the 60 cards, and go as close to as 40 as possible, while having a very nice ratio of non-engine and starters, and also having like a very nice toolboxy feel to the deck. Of course, the 3 Seyfert and 3 Chaos Space will be crucial in the tools of enabling Chaos Angel and also Disparta next to the Rocket Engine. And in my opinion, Chaos Angel will be the strongest thing Dragons can do in the next format, with Super Heavy Samurais having a lot of hard times outing in, and Tower monsters in general being quite effectively strong against Kashtira as well. Chaos Angel just seems like a very solid card to play, and I really just wanted my light level 4 monsters to be as accessible as possible, and those are Seyfert, Chaos Space, and Wyver Burster. So we only really have 7 ways to get into them, together with the 3 small worlds, that's 10 ways, and I just want to see them so that going second I can just go for like a quick Chaos Angel into the board and then maybe control the game off that. And with like Seyfert plus Sarania, that is a very good time in my opinion. Just normal summon Seyfert, maybe having resolved the Sarania in the opponent's turn, and then just going into Chaos Angel, Sarania send the Lobelian, have the Seyfert there. It just seems very clean in my opinion. And then a reason why I wanted to play Dragon Link is definitely access to the Rocket Engine and with Quick Launch. And this goes back to the same reasoning of what I went to 45 for the Seyfert and Chaos Space. I just really want to see the Quick Launch and the Rocket Engine to be able to go into Disparta, like going second. Because if we use like the Bystials to like maybe bait something, or maybe use it as a disruption in the opponent's turn, we have very easy access into Disparta. As a big boss monster, maybe we can summon back like a Seyfert or something out of our banished pile. Having a negate very early on into the combo going second into the board is always really strong. So having access into Quick Launch, which is by far the cleanest way to go into Disparta going second, seemed very clean to me. So I wanted to go down to 45-ish cards, as close to 40 as possible. You can see that I'm playing a Rocket Caliber. Well, mentioned earlier that the Sparta is not really that good going first, like in a vacuum. If you go for like standard uncontested combos, you don't really want to go into that just because it plays way too much into Nibiru. But there are certain combo lines if you have like basically everything where you want to go for like a Tracer summon Caliber, and then we link off Tracer and the Bystial into a Disparter summon back a Seyfried, and then Seyfried and the other tuner go into the Savage, where you can like then end on everything. It is a very niche pick, and maybe you can just cut it out, but it felt very decently clean because we want to have more tuners, right? Because in a pinch, we can just normal summon the Caliber, like make a Saronir, and then go into a Disparter, or like even a Chaos Angel, and then continue off that. So it seems like a decent addition to the deck, and with the same reasoning we had earlier for the 3 Saronir, just a normal summon Dragon is fine now. Because Saronir gives us access into more Lubellians, and that just flows from there, and we can just continue playing into opponent's boards or just going first, make seal pass. You gotta love it. You can see we don't really have a space for the Red as Darkness Metal Dragon anymore and the Black Metal. Reason for that is that I really just want to have level 4 dragons to cheese wins with like this Disparter or like a Chaos Angel. Black Metal could still be fine, but it honestly in testing it never really came up that I really missed it. And if I'm not at 60, I don't really see the reason to play more normal summons and more starters if we already have so many normal summons in this deck already. So it just didn't seem natural. Then I still have the Small World plus the Noctovision. I fell in love with Small World on the 60 card variant. And Noctovision is just the best bridge, and it's also a really solid card with like Seyfried, Abs, Router. So it just makes sense to play it, and it's like the best bridge from most of the hand traps there. And Small was just really solid to give us more access into Seyfried and Lubellian. While it does go -1, oh oopsie, it just seems like a still very solid card in my opinion. There are times where this can be a little awkward to use, make me want to go like maybe like cut one option of them, which is something you could do. You could also cut it completely, and then you're like down to 42 cards, which is also like a very solid amount. Then you could even cut the Noctovision, and you're already on 41 cards. But then we already only have like 6, 9, 10-ish going second cards, and Small World just fills the bridge so well. Like we have 8 going second cards, I can't even count. It just fills the bridge so well of being like a going second card, being like a search for the Santa Claus, we'll get to that, being a search for like a Droll on Ash going second. This card is just so versatile and can like really help you get into what you want, and kind of fills this toolboxy vibe the deck has, where you can always just take a look, oh, what card do I need in this? Do I want the Levy? Do I want the Ash? It just feels so good, and being so versatile and being able to adapt to everything your opponent does to you. And Small World just fills this niche perfectly. And then we have the non-engine. I think Gamma will be mandatory to play next format, just like it is right now. Same as Droll, because it's too good against Kashtira and super heavy Samurais. And then we have one each of Santa Claus and Ogre. I started to notice that playing kaijus, that Small World became very weird with those kaijus, but Santa Claus is actually hella clean. It's a light, so you can bridge from like any light into any other light into like a Lubellian or like a Seyfried, so that's pretty decent. You can use it as a bridge from like an Ogre into Santa Claus into any of the cards which you really want to have. But most importantly, it turns all of these guys alive, so you can go like from any like additional, if you have like 2 Saronirs or 2 Magnamuts, you can use Small World, go into Santa Claus because it's level 6, and then you can get into any of these 2. So this just really helps while being a very good bridge, but also way more easily accessible with the Small World. So Santa Claus definitely a huge card in there. And then one Ogre finally, because it's a really solid hand trip, and I think I will be playing 3 Ogre in the next format. Just because it's like really solid against mostly super heavy samurais, but also can be very good against Purely to get rid of all of their permanent spell traps or like field spells, which make them plus insanely hard if you are able to remove that tower. So this seems like a very solid pickup in my opinion. I like standard stuff in the side deck. Maybe you change things up. I think you don't really have the space for Scarlet in the extra deck anymore, so you gotta put it in the side deck to win in time. And then the extra deck is pretty standard. You still have a lot of the toolbox cards you have. Like a lot of decks or Dragon variants can't really make use of Dark all too well, but this deck can still make it the best and make these generic access code pushes really accessible. No Masquerade anymore, which is a little sad, but the Disparter and the Chaos Angel are, in my opinion, just way too important. And if you already commit a lot of into that deck, you really want it to be accessible as possible, because Chaos Angel and Disparter are very solid tools, but they do require quite a lot of extra deck space. As you can see, we have 3 Synchro 10s, which is a lot for a deck, which makes it like once per match. So we really want to maximize our chances of going into these really strong plays to make all of the extra deck space which we use for it worth it. So my opinion, and in my testing, this has been performing the best. We also still have like a 60 card variant or like a 50 card, which I've been testing here with like going up in deck count, maybe playing more non-engine, stuff like that, playing 3 tracers. This worked out as well, but honestly, I really like the less amounts of cards and go like something like this, maybe even something like this in the future, who knows. But 60 card just hasn't been performing as well because Seyfried, what always has been basically the strongest Dragon Link card, it is now definitely way too strong right now not to play close to 40. Just because it being able to access Chaos Angel, which can be an auto win into so many matchups out of nowhere and so early on already because it's just that strong, is in my opinion mandatory. But that's been basically it of all of my thoughts and all of my testing experience in the last few week and a half probably. So to conclude, Bystial Control is still fine and maybe even the go-to pick at the start of the format because you want to have a safe pick with a lot of non-engine more than Dragon Link to be able to combat a very unknown meta. Apple Dragon Brave piles seem very bad. It's even like not really good one-off into Dragon Link. I tested with that as well, and Apple Dragon just seems too inconsistent to be able to pop off because you always will have a lack of tuners and or non-engine, and even if you have both of those things available to you, the combo is not really that strong, and then you will probably be lacking like the Dragon Toolbox, which makes Bystial so strong. Being able to end on Seal and loop Magnum Wood is not something the deck is really good at, so this is just a deck which tries too much, and the end board is not even, or the payoff is not even that strong. So in my opinion, I wouldn't put too much time into that deck like I did, because it's not really that strong. And when it comes down to it, it's in my opinion a battle between Dragon Link and between Bystial Control, just like in the last format, with Dragon Link having more access into Dispata, while Bystial Control has more access into hand traps and can combat an unknown meta a little bit better. So that has been my experience with testing. Definitely share your guys' experience in the comment section down below as well. Class is dismissed. You guys are free to leave. Professor Sunrise out. Peace.